You're watching the part 2 of the most important vocabulary. Very important vocabulary that students who are preparing for competitive exams, especially SSC, CGL, CHSL kind of exams, must study important vocabulary. You're watching the part 2. We'll start the vocabulary in this session. Like in my LA video also, I have very clearly told you, anywhere you have the doubt about the spelling of any particular word, check in the description of the video. I have very clearly mentioned the list of the words which I am going to discuss in detail in this session. We'll start with the vocabulary, that is the part 2 vocabulary. Number 1, a very important vocabulary, that is aberration. What is meant by aberration? Aberration means deviating from the normal path. It's a kind of diversion. It's a kind of deviation. So deviating from what is normal or deviating from what is desirable is what we call aberration. I'll give you a simple example. I have never seen a stranger aberration than a two-headed snake. So I have never seen a stranger aberration than a two-headed snake. Usually we do not find two-headed snake, we usually find only snake with one head. But aberration is entirely a kind of deviation from what is normal. We usually say aberration. In your competitive exams preparation, do not allow unnecessary aberration, because you cannot reach your goal if you keep on allowing too many aberrations. So aberration is deviation or diversion from what is normal. Then the next vocabulary in this video is desultory. What is meant by desultory? Desultory is not having any plan or purpose. It's a kind of casual thing. Nothing very planned. I've done something. My friend asked, "Did you really plan all this?" And I said, No, I didn't plan all this. So it was a desultory action. Nothing very much planned prior, or kind of casual thing. We usually say this after losing the game. We gave a desultory cheer to the opponent team. Desultory cheer. It was not something very serious. It was a casual or not very formal. So desultory can be like not very serious, not planned, or not very formal. Then the next vocabulary is a vocabulary. The next word, I think we use this word very much in our communication also. That is provoke. What is meant by provoke? We usually use this, right? Don't provoke me. So triggering an action. Provoke means triggering an action or incite a response from someone. Either you try to provoke someone. Don't provoke me unnecessarily to get me anger. So don't provoke me. Don't try to trigger unnecessary reaction, especially anger. That's what we call provoke. I'm sure provoke we usually use in our day-to-day communication also. The next word is revert. 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 What is meant by revert? We use this revert in our email communication also, right? Mostly when we put email to someone, we use this, please revert as soon as possible. So revert is return or reply. So to reverse, that's what where we use revert. Please revert as soon as possible. For example, you have you have your washing machine complaint, and you have put a mail to the customer care saying that this is the problem in the washing machine, please revert as soon as possible. That's where we use revert. Very commonly we use. The next vocabulary is taut. T-A-U-T. Taut. Taut means stressed too much. Taut means stressed. We usually say the definition like this. Taut means stressed to the point of being nervous. Absolutely stressed. That's where we use the word taut. Like his lack of good preparation left him taut. He's stressed. He didn't prepare well for the exam, or he didn't prepare well for the interview. So naturally, when you do not prepare well for the interview, you will be naturally left in taut. Left stressed. That's why we use taut. The next vocabulary in this video is vehemently or vehement. Vehement. So what is meant by vehement? Something very deep, something very passionate. That's where we use vehement. I have done it vehemently. I have taken the matter vehemently. So vehement is something very deep, something very intense, something very passionate. I'll give you one example. Most of the poor people have opposed the proposal of the government vehemently. Most of the people have opposed to the proposal of the government vehemently, means intensely or deeply, seriously. That's where we use vehemently. I think the next word is very common word which is known to most of us. I know that is vengeance. So vengeance is all about revenge for someone or revenge for something. That's where we use vengeance. So she wanted to take vengeance. So she wanted the vengeance. She wanted the vengeance in the form of death penalty. Usually, we find on the news very often where someone, uh, you know, uh, killed someone in a family. Now these members of the deceased person says, these members of the deceased person says, we want vengeance, and only the vengeance comes with the death penalty of that accused. So there we use vengeance, very commonly word, a commonly used word. The next word is important, that is untenable. Untenable is nothing but weak. I'll give a simple example to understand it and remember it easily. The advocate lost the case. The advocate lost the case because his argument is untenable. The advocate lost the case because his argument is untenable. Untenable means something not very strong or very weak. That's where we say not being able to support. That the actual dictionary definition says untenable is not being able to support oneself. So in a simple language, I say weak, which is not very strong. Ghastly. The next vocabulary is ghastly or ghastly. Ghastly. So the meaning itself, the sound itself is clearly conveying the meaning. Ghastly, extremely awful. Extremely awful. So ghastly or ghastly says very bad, extremely awful. It's like you can use it especially for imagine you're not well, the doctor prescribed a medicine and you cannot take the medicine because the medicine is not good to taste. Then we say, I can't take this medicine further. I can't take this medicine further because it's ghastly. It's too ghastly to take. So ghastly is absolutely bad or extremely awful. Extremely awful. The next vocabulary is important, students. Diminution. 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 What is meant by diminution? We find this word diminution in the newspapers because diminution is usually used when you have the prices of commodities coming down or the price of petrol coming down, price of vegetable coming down, so on, which means you easily understand reduction or lessen. That's where we use diminution, reduction or lessen. The next vocabulary is canny. 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 Usually, canny is used in displaying good sense and judgment. In one way, Canny is being very clever. Canny is being very clever. Especially, he is good at giving judgments. He is good at sense. That's where we use Canny. That's where we use Canny. I'll give a simple example. The Canny detective. The Canny detective was able to find the accused in 2 days. The canny detective, which means someone who is very clever and having some good sense and judgment. That's we call canny. The next vocabulary is antagonism. Antagonism. What is meant by antagonism? We usually use antagonist. In movies, we have protagonist and antagonist, right? We have protagonist and antagonist. In my earlier videos, also, I have given you the same example. In the movie Bahubali, Prabhas is a protagonist and Rana is the antagonist. Or Bahubali is a protagonist and Ballala Deva is the antagonist. So the negativity or the negative character is what we call antagonist. Obviously, antagonism is a kind of enmity, strong dislike. So antagonism is about having some strong dislike. And the next is affiliation. Affiliation is a word I think most of us even use in our colloquial language. Affiliation is a strong association. Affiliation is a strong association. It can be with a particular organization or for a particular body. So affiliation is a normal word. This college is affiliated to so and so university. So affiliation is not new to all of us. Then acerbity, the next vocabulary. Any doubt about the spelling? Once again I'm telling you, you have a doubt in the spelling, check in the description. I have mentioned all the words. Acerbity, or we usually say acerbic. So acerbity, what is meant by acerbity? Acerbity means a kind of harshness. Acerbity means a kind of harshness. I don't like the acerbity that you carry every time in your tone. So acerbity means roughness or harshness. Roughness or harshness. Then the next vocabulary is lascivious. Excuse me, sorry, lascivious. What is meant by lascivious? Having or showing strong sexual desire. So lascivious text message. He has sent me a lascivious text message, or lascivious. I have recently read a lascivious novel, lascivious story, and so on. So lascivious is having a kind of sexual desire, sexual intent involved in something. That's what we say, lascivious. Semantics. The next vocabulary, students. Semantics. Semantics. What is meant by semantics? The actual meaning behind a term or a phrase. Semantics means the actual meaning behind a sentence, the actual meaning behind a word, the actual meaning behind a phrase. That's what we call semantics. The next word, wretched. Wretched. What is meant by wretched? Wretched means incredibly miserable. Wretched. I'll give a wonderful example to understand it better. His consistent migraine, his constant migraine made him feel wretched. His constant migraine, some people have migraine problem. His constant migraine made him feel wretched. So now the meaning of the word wretched is easy to understand. Wretched means feel very bad, feel very miserable, feel very disappointed about it. Constant problem keeps you, wretched, keeps you in a wretched situation. Wretched is feeling very, very, very miserable about something, bad about something. Then the next word is Rivet. 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 Earlier also I have very clearly explained what is revert. Revert. That is Revert. This is Rivet. They sound similar. But that revert is written or reply. This Rivet. This revert is, attract. We usually say to command the attention of someone or something. So rivet means attract the people, attract something, and where we use the word rivet, his performance failed to. His performance in the movie failed to rivet the audience. A simple example. Then Malinger. Malinger. What is meant by Malinger? Malinger means act in such a way that you are not well. A simple example, one more explanation I'll give you. Malinger means pretend not to be well, or pretend to be sick. Pretend to be sick. Why do you do this? Especially because you're lazy, you don't want to do something. Or a school kid who doesn't want to go to school, he starts acting that he's not well, or she pretends to be unwell. Then there we use the word malinger. The lazy student tried to malinger when it was the time to submit his homework. The lazy student tried to malinger when it was his time to submit his homework. That's what we call malinger. Malinger means pretend to be very, very unwell. Pretend to be unwell. In this video, let's discuss the last vocabulary, that is laborious. Laborious. What is meant by laborious? Something involving a lot of hard work. Laborious comes from labor. So laborious means involving a lot of efforts, mental or physical efforts. That's where we say laborious. You seem to be very laborious. Means you put a lot of efforts in what you do, or you seem to be very hardworking in nature, and so on. So laborious is very important, especially when you want to crack your competitive exam, when you want to crack civil services, if that is your ambition, or when you want to get through the competitive exam that you're preparing for, like SSC, CHSL, or CGL, and so on. You need to be laborious in your approach. You can't be lazy. You need to be very laborious. So students, I'm only giving you a word and the meaning. I'm not getting into synonyms. And how do we study synonyms? Many people have this question. They ask me, Sham sir, how do we study synonyms? How do we study antonyms? And I always come with only one answer every time. Don't study synonyms, don't study antonyms separately. You only study vocabulary. You only study word and the meaning with suitable example, easy example to remember. In that process, when you keep on studying the words and the meanings, in that process, naturally, what happens is you will get to know synonyms. For example, you have one word with two different meanings at two different times, then you will understand, oh, these are synonyms. So naturally, synonyms come to you, antonyms will come to you. You don't need to go to them. You only have to do a simple task, that is study the words and the meanings and also try to remember with a suitable example, and then naturally synonyms, antonyms will be known to you. You don't need to put any extra efforts for that. You only have to study the vocabulary. In this video, I have tried to discuss with you some important vocabulary. We will meet in our next part of this vocabulary series with still a lot more vocabulary to discuss. All the best.